David Friedman is a former U.S. ambassador to Israel and the author of One Jewish State, the last best hope to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and joins us this morning. So if you were serving as an ambassador, how would you be advising the president right now?
Well, I think I would advise patience. I think we're going to win. I mean, I think this is the outcome of this war is not in doubt. And I think the only way where we get sidetracked is if we appear too anxious, whether because of the midterm elections or the price of oil, we appear to the Iranians too anxious to get a deal done. Now, I know the president is not anxious. I've spoken to him about this. He is willing to do what it takes to win this war. Remember a couple of, kind of stark facts. This is the worst economic crisis the Iranians have had since the 1979 revolution, right? Their inflation rate is 67%. Their sale of barrels of oil has gone from 2.5 million barrels a day to 300,000. The rial, their currency, is now 1.8 million rials to the dollar. I mean, they are failing. Yeah. And at some point, the Revolutionary Guard, the people that back up this horrible regime, they're going to stop getting paid. They're not going to be able to put food on the table. And when those types of things happen, history tells us the regime falls, and then we're in a position to dictate the terms of their surrender. So I think it's just a question of being patient. And, look, gas prices, may remain high for another month or two. But I think the president's view is, look, I'm not going to tell my grandchildren that, because of a couple of dollars spike in gas, that I saddled them with a radical Islamic nuclear regime. And I think that's exactly the right place to be.
David, there does seem to be a lot of pressure from Americans on the administration to end this thing. And there also seems to be maybe a little bit missing in terms of the explanation of why we're doing what we're doing and how important it is to take out this regime. What would you say to the American people about that?
Well, again, I think the politics are driving a lot of this. Most of that noise is coming from the president's traditional opponents. Look, the Iranians, facing this massive economic crisis, the likes of which they've never seen before, are saying to President Trump, we're not willing to give up, some powder that's buried underground from which we can make 10 nuclear bombs. What does that tell the world? What does that tell the American public about their willingness, about their insistence upon becoming a nuclear power? And the way they're acting, what does that tell us about the likelihood that they would use it, that they would use this power if they ever got a hold of it? So again, I think Americans understand that there's almost nothing more dangerous in the world than this Iranian regime with a nuclear weapon. The politics are all over the place, but that's all it is. There's no cogent argument against what the president's doing.
Things are changing so rapidly in the Middle East right now, and I really want to get your perspective on that. We know that there's been a rift between the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the UAE pulling out of OPEC. Saudi Arabia had said that they wouldn't let them produce more oil to sell. But this happened, it was confirmed by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, overnight. Israel has sent Iron Dome anti-missile batteries to the UAE, to bolster their defenses against Iran. How significant is that? And what message does that send to the broader Middle East?
Well, it tells you how things are changing, and this is the logical extension of the Abraham Accords that I negotiated with some of my friends, Jared Kushner and others, back in 2020. The UAE is the most forward-looking Arab country in the Gulf. It sees Israel as the solution, not the problem to the future. It sees Israel as having a common enemy. UAE and Israel are both combating radical Islamists. The Saudis, I think, are going to move in that direction eventually anyway, because they have no choice. I mean, radical Islam is as much a danger to the Gulf as it is to Israel. And so we're seeing a complete realignment. You're absolutely right. We're seeing a very stark realignment of loyalties and of priorities within the region. Ultimately, once this turbulence ends, and it will, I think we're going to see a much more peaceful, a much more rational, much more prosperous region that will no longer hopefully, God willing, threaten the United States and its allies.
Wouldn't that be something? But Ambassador, does it surprise you how incredibly defiant the Iranian regime has been thus far, hanging on, even though, as you said, their economy is crumbling right around them?
Well, President Trump used to say, I think he still says it sometimes, that the Iranians have never won a war and they've never lost a negotiation. And that's because they do have this radical ideology which doesn't permit compromise. Again, understand that in the context of a nuclearized Iran, that they are the only ones out there, who actually might use a nuclear weapon if given the opportunity. So I don't think it's a surprise that they're hanging on, because if they give up, this regime is not popular. This regime has tortured its people. They've slaughtered 40, 50,000 of their people on the streets just because of the crime of them standing in the streets and asking for a better life. So we know who they are. They're not going to give up. Because if they give up, they're all dead. I mean, they're going to be taken over, and they're going to. So I think that's all part of the calculus. But again, once they're broke and they're on the verge of being broke, I think their regime is very likely to crumble.
Wow.
Ambassador David Friedman, thank you very much. He brings up a great point. The worst enemy you can have is an enemy with no options other than to continue down that defiant path.
They're ruthless, and they hate America, and they hate America's friends.
Yep.